Okay, so have you ever like walked through a forest, with these giant trees all around and felt like kind of awestruck, like you're surrounded by these ancient beings?
Totally. It's like stepping into a different world.
It makes you wonder what's going on beneath the surface, right? What secrets are these trees hiding?
Right. Like we see the trees, but what's happening underground, out of sight.
And that's what we're diving into today, the world of mother trees. And I'll be honest, when I first heard that term, I was picturing like a talking willow tree from a fairy tale or something.
Um, yeah, it sounds a little whimsical.
But then I read Suzanne Simard's book, Finding the Mother Tree, and it totally blew my mind.
Yeah, her work is seriously revolutionary. She's a forest ecologist, and she spent decades studying how trees interact. And what she found turns a lot of our old ideas about forests upside down.
Because we're so used to thinking about competition in nature, right?
Yeah.
Survival of the fittest and all that.
Exactly. But Simard's research shows that forests are way more complex than that. Trees aren't just competing, they're actually cooperating and communicating with each other through this amazing underground network of fungi.
I'll admit, when I first heard about trees communicating, I was skeptical. It sounded kind of like, well,
A bit out there.
yeah. But then I learned about mycelium and how it connects everything. Can you explain that a bit? What exactly is mycelium and how does it work?
Okay, so imagine like a vast network of threads woven through the soil, connecting the roots of all the trees in a forest.
Okay, I can picture that.
That's mycelium, is this massive underground fungal network. And it acts like a kind of communication highway for trees.
So instead of sending emails, they're sending what? Chemical signals, nutrients. What are they sharing?
Exactly. Through this fungal network, they can exchange nutrients, water, even warning signals about things like drought or disease.
Wow, that's wild.
Huh.
So where do mother trees fit into all of this?
So mother trees are the biggest, oldest trees in a forest. They're like the central hubs of this underground network. They've got these huge root systems that are connected to tons of other trees through the mycelium.
So they're like the wise old matriarchs of the forest.
Yes. And they don't just soak up resources, they actually use the network to help other trees, especially younger seedlings.
Really? How so? How do they help?
Well, for one, mother trees can actually sense which seedlings are their offspring.
No, wait, seriously?
Yeah, and they'll channel extra nutrients and water to those seedlings through the mycorrhizal network, giving them a better chance of survival.
So they're like nurturing the next generation.
Exactly. And that's just one way mother trees are essential to a forest's health. They do so much more than just provide shade.
So mother trees are like guardians, protecting the forest for future generations.
Yeah, exactly. And it's especially important when you think about, like, climate change or deforestation, those kind of threats.
Right, because those things put even more stress on forests. So how do the mother trees deal with that?
Well, Simard's research has found that when a mother tree senses a disturbance, like a fire or something, it doesn't just give up. It kicks into survival mode, but not just for itself.
So it's preparing for what comes after the disturbance.
Right. It actually sends out these warning signals through the fungal network, and it sends nutrients and energy to the younger trees.
Wow, that's incredible, like sending out an SOS, hey everyone, brace yourselves.
Exactly. And they're also passing on wisdom, kind of like saying, okay, things are going to get rough, but we've survived this before, you can too.
It's like they have this ancient knowledge passed down through generations of trees. And it makes you think, in some cultures, trees are seen as these wise beings.
Absolutely. Indigenous communities have recognized this interconnectedness in nature for centuries, long before Western science came along.
It's like science is finally catching up to what many people have known all along. Speaking of science, Simard's work with these incredible findings about mother trees, I imagine it probably ruffled some feathers in the scientific community, right?
So, yeah, different way of looking at things.
Yeah, it definitely shook things up a bit. I mean,
Uh-huh.
whenever you challenge, long-held beliefs, you're going to get some pushback.
Right. People can be pretty attached to the way they think things work.
Yeah. And some scientists thought that Simard was, how do they put it, anthropomorphizing trees.
Anthropomorphizing, right. Giving human traits to non-human things.
Exactly. They felt like she was like projecting human emotions onto trees, saying they were talking or caring when, scientifically speaking.
Right, they're just chemical signals. It's not like the trees are having a chat over a cup of tea or anything.
Exactly. They were skeptical of that. And there were others who said that her research, which focused mainly on like Douglas fir forests in British Columbia.
Right, so they were saying it might not apply to all forests everywhere. Right, exactly.
So it's like, okay, interesting findings, but let's see more. But even with the skepticism, Simard, she wasn't afraid to stand up for her research, was she?
Oh, absolutely not. She kept researching, kept gathering data, and she was also very open about the fact that, Western science doesn't have all the answers. She started to incorporate indigenous perspectives into her work, recognizing that many cultures have this deep understanding of forests as these interconnected systems.
It's about acknowledging that there are different ways of knowing, different ways of understanding the natural world.
Exactly.
So how did Simard take those different ways of knowing that science, those indigenous perspectives, and actually put them into practice?
That's where the Mother Tree Project comes in. It's this huge experiment she launched here in BC. You know how a lot of logging is done through clear cutting?
Yeah, sadly I've seen it. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, so clear cutting takes out all the trees, right? And even though companies will replant, Simard's research suggests that clear cutting disrupts that whole underground network we were talking about.
Because you're taking away the mother trees, those central hubs.
Exactly. And it's not just the trees that are taking away, it's the knowledge, the wisdom, the centuries of experience that those mother trees have.
It's like wiping out a whole library of information. So what's the alternative? How is the Mother Tree Project doing things differently?
So they're testing a method called retention forestry. Basically, it means leaving a certain number of mother trees standing after a harvest.
Oh, okay, so they're like strategically choosing which trees to harvest and which to leave.
Exactly. And the thinking is those remaining mother trees can help guide the regeneration of the forest.
Because they can nurture those young seedlings.
Exactly. And help them thrive.
That's really cool. And what are they finding? Is it working?
The early results are promising. I mean, it's a long-term study. But they're finding that the seedlings that grow near mother trees, they tend to be healthier, more resilient, more diverse.
That's amazing. It's like this ancient wisdom embedded within the mother trees and the fungal network is being validated by modern science.
Exactly. It's about more than just proving a point. It's about figuring out how to manage our forests in a way that's good for the planet, good for the future.
And it makes you wonder, like, if something as simple as leaving mother trees standing can have such a big impact, what other changes could we make if we start seeing the forest as this connected living system?
That's a great question. And in Simard's book, she talks about how this idea of interconnectedness, it's not just limited to forests. She went to the Amazon rainforest and
It's like we've forgotten how to listen to nature, you know? Like we're so busy trying to impose our own ideas that we've tuned out these ancient rhythms and patterns.
it's so true. And that's what's so amazing about Simard's trip to the Amazon. She went there to connect with indigenous communities and learn from their wisdom. And she ended up having this really profound experience with a shaman named Minari.
Okay, I want to hear more about this. Who is Minari and what happened?
So Minari is a shaman from the Sipar Nation, and he's like a spiritual leader, a healer, a keeper of ancient knowledge.
Hmm.
And he basically told Simard that the knowledge to address climate change, it's already here. Like, we already have what we need.
It's not some big mystery we have to solve.
Right. It's about remembering, reconnecting with those ancient traditions and that deep wisdom that's always existed within nature and within ourselves.
So what else did Minari say? What did he tell her about how to reconnect?
He talked about the importance of people coming together, all over the world to protect the planet. He actually emphasized the role of women in this movement.
Yes, women have been leading the charge on so many environmental issues. It's like there's this deep understanding that caring for the earth and caring for future generations go hand in hand.
Absolutely. And, Minari, he acknowledged the challenges, like it's not going to be easy.
Right, we've got our work cut out for us, that's for sure.
But he really stressed that by working together, remembering our connection to nature, we can create a better future. It was a message of hope and also a call to action.
It's like Simard's scientific journey. It led her right back to these ancient truths, the things that indigenous cultures have understood for centuries.
It's true. And I think it reminds us that science doesn't have to be this cold, sterile thing.
Yeah.
It can be about observation, curiosity, and openness to different ways of knowing.
And maybe even a little bit of awe and wonder.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good place to leave it, Remember that feeling of being in the forest, surrounded by these incredible trees.
Like we talked about at the very beginning, right? That sense of awe.
Yeah, because if a forest can be so much more than what we thought, imagine what other mysteries are out there waiting to be uncovered if we just open ourselves up to the possibility.
Exactly. And who knows what we might find when we start paying attention, really listening to what nature has to tell us.